That's discussion and possible action regarding informal update of the implementation of the Mendocino County Cannabis Cultivation Program and cannabis compliance efforts. Staff, Planning and Building Services is sponsors, so I'm handing it off to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brent Schultz and board members, Planning and Building Services Director, and also County Council Elliott, and also our CEO, Deputy CEO Rao. I get that right? That's not caramel. But anyway, hey, I appreciate the opportunity to report. As of April 22nd, the Cannabis Permit Division has received a total of 1,339 permit applications. It's an increase in 25 new applications from the last monthly meeting, and this is, of course, for April. We have approved and issued 246 permits. I want to let you know that I've signed a new cannabis permit issuance policy yesterday that I just signed with Sean. It establishes a 40-day time frame for applicants to pay for and pick up their permits from the Cannabis Division. We have a number of people. They are ready to go, won't come in and pay their permits. So if they don't come in and pull their permits, they're void. So I encourage them to all come in and get their permit issued. We like to do that right away. There are 964 permit applications under review by the Cannabis Division. Our estimate of the number of those that are at the state of California is about 75%. When I say state of California, one thing, you know, I'm new to the cannabis program, new to the county, as you know, and I think we wrongly get, we as the county get lumped in with the state of California. We are not the state of California. We're the county of Mendocino. We do not have control their processes. While we do have the process, we can push them. We do not control them. They do not answer to me. I wish they did so I could get their processes done so we could issue our permit, because we're waiting on them in many cases. My take is on the program, because I don't have the actual access to their database, but talking with Sean and Siobhan, is that probably 70 to 75% of those applications are being held up at the state. It could be a number of them could be ready to go, but one or two are holding it up, and I don't have that precise data. It is going to help us with, I'm hearing from Sean on the modules and changes that IT has helped us with, and I think I'm going to, as time goes on, I'm going to try to better and better drive down into that number for the board, so you know exactly where that is, because frankly, I need everybody's help to push on the state, not just the applicants, but all of us to please get them out. My plan going forward with Sean is to try to put these all with the state, get them through our process where, you know, then I can start working on pushing the state to issue their approvals. So, and the remainder of them are with us, and we need to process those and issue the permits. We have moved the Cannabis Division from Ag to Planning and Building. That's done. And have already established training processes for them. We have some new staff members who have trained them on property profiles and things. But I need to let you know, we inherited a program in Planning and Building that had 70% of the positions vacant. We are thankfully, Human Resources is helping us now fill those positions back up. We just got a really great hire who's working up at the front counter, Atlas, and he's doing great. So I'm hoping we can keep that going. I want to fill the rest of those positions and get Sean back up to fighting strength. So he's got everybody here. But with that comes a tremendous management and a responsibility to get them trained. These are folks that may or may not know our cannabis ordinances. They're complex and they've been changing, and it takes us some time to get people up to speed on them. So we're going to work as fast as we can. So right now we're working to fill the last 3 open positions, right, Sean? Going forward, though, the program staff are going to focus on, I want them to focus on training and getting them to understand that ordinance so they know it like the back of their hand, so they can, when they're doing inspections or doing processes, we can get people through there quickly. We're also collaborating with state referral agencies to expedite their process. But ultimately, these are, again, hurdles not controlled by us. And one thing I do want, and lastly, before I turn it back to any questions, I really want to encourage as we go forward to these ordinance changes, hopefully they can get done by summer. We can then get those into our training program so everybody knows what they are, that they settle down, and then we really start, pushing our new staff, our new team that's in cannabis to issue permits as quick as possible. And then really try to get in there with our applicants and make sure precisely where is the problem with the state agencies and get them through that process so we can issue. And I'm here to answer any questions as well as Sean.
Okay, and we do. Supervisor Williams?
Through the chair, would it be possible to include a chart in future reports of 1 point on the x-axis per month so that we could kind of visualize over time how the program's doing? I mean, I'm looking at this thinking that I thought it was the same number last time. I know it's probably bumped up a little bit, but it's pretty close. I'd love to see that curve and be able to go to the state and show them kind of what's happening in our county. Is that feasible? Maybe. What do we need? What are the next steps for working with the state? Are we the only county in this position, or are our neighbors also suffering the same fate that 75% of pending applications are held up?
Can you answer that, Joe?
If I may, through the chair, Sean Connell, Cannabis Program Manager. I would say that a lot of the other counties are experiencing the same effects.
But a lot, meaning some are not.
There are some. I think Lake County probably has it pretty easy for them right now. They're basically out of use permits in a controlled water source over there, so they have a little bit of a different process. It is very much dependent on how the ordinance for each county is set up and what those two dictate. I will tell you, in communication with a lot of the coastal cannabis community, that a lot of them, Santa Barbara, Monterey, they're all having these types of issues. As we get together in the next couple of weeks, we'll be talking that as a cannabis forum to bring that to the state so that we as a cannabis management team can start to work as well.
Got it. And then seeing that we have to trim $800,000 of costs out per our budget earlier, is there any feasibility of having the applicants take photos and submit the photos electronically rather than sending an inspector out, knowing that a state inspection will come, right? And so, and maybe trust them if they say it's 2,500 square feet and it looks like it. What difference does it make if it's 26 and we're off? Would it save us a whole lot of money? I recall hearing 17 hours to work through the process. I would think that would shave a whole lot of time off if we just took their evidence as opposed to going out on site.
Madam Chair, could I address that?
Yes.
I'd really prefer right now if the board members would, I appreciate that input and ideas. I'd like to sit down with Sean, and we're setting up meetings now to walk through each process that our applicants have to go through. I'm an old redevelopment guy. I've been on the other side of the counter. I want to see it from the applicant standpoint and see where legally, where I'm not doing something in opposition to our ordinance. But if I can do it a different way and do it quicker and still meet what the ordinance says, I want to try to do that and shave off time. So to get through our process, and that's my goal. And I'm open to suggestions and ideas. I want to hear from applicants. I have heard from applicants a lot of, but nobody's come in precisely with precise things that we could do to shorten the process and still meet our ordinance and still meet state law. That's what I really want to. I want to hear those ideas. And I haven't had any. I've asked a lot of people, and nobody's come in yet. Few, Hannah came in, but not a lot.
Supervisor Haschuk?
Thank you. Let's see, in March 21st, in the report, there were 215 issued permits and 23 approved for a total of 238. And that's a month and a half ago. And now there's 221 and 25 approved for a total of 246 for a difference of 8. So what can we do to to make, you know, if 75% are being held up at the state, then there's 25% that aren't being held up at the state. And so why is that number so low?
I can answer that, Chair, if I could. He doesn't have a program administrator, he doesn't have administrative staff, and he lost three inspectors. We were down 70%. It was a turnover issue. So now Human Resources has stepped in. Heidi's doing a great job from everything I can see, and we're starting to fill those positions back up.
Okay, so I guess my follow-up question would it be helpful to you to not show up every month or a month and a half here?
I'll answer that, yes. It would be helpful if we could work with our applicants, and I could work with Sean and everybody doing the process, and I could work with the state to try to pare down at any way possible that application process. And I would really appreciate if I could have that opportunity, maybe come quarterly, whatever you want. I'll come every month if you want, but it'd be nice if I could have more time with him.
Can I follow up? Yeah. Well, when we talked about going to like a monthly instead of a every other week report, and then we're still not seeing that much change in the reports, it seems like we should be going to a quarterly report so you can get the work done and let work with, you know, it was brought up earlier that some of the growers would be, you know, willing to look at the system too to help out in whatever way possible. I think that's a better use of time and your energy than coming here and reporting with numbers that aren't moving that much.
So Supervisor, you're suggesting the next time we ask them to come forward would be in August?
Well, I think that we're going to have an ad hoc recommendation from the Cannabis Cultivation Group, and so certainly they'd have to be here then.
Okay. Okay. Supervisor Williams?
I hear from a lot of people about cannabis, and I see how hard staff is working. I think if anybody could pull it off, it would be these two. There's an inherent problem here, and it may be the state, and I think we need to address it at some point. I don't know if it's legal action, if it's starting the revolt, but we're just meeting after meeting looking at the same numbers and saying, give us a little bit more time. We're going to investigate, try to find deficiencies, figure out what the state's doing with the application. This thing is just stalled. And I have the public telling me, Ted, this program is a failure. And I tend to agree. You have one of the 5 up here, at least, that thinks that this program does not work. And I want to together find next steps. And if it means going to the state and showing them it doesn't work, our staff is working around the clock trying to pull this off, our applicants are doing everything they should be doing, and you're putting us out of business. I think we need to do that. Otherwise, to say let's not hear the numbers until August because it's stalled just feels like a capitulation that it's very easy in this seat. It's probably easy for staff. They're working hard. They're busy. It's painful for that small farmer that can't pay his bills, can't buy gas, can't buy food because the state is stalled. And frankly, those 25% that are stalled on us, we've got to move on that because that's hurting people, and that really is on us. That's significant. But we have to have some next steps. And it can't just be looking at staff asking them to work harder and fix it faster. They're doing what they can do. There needs to be some action between us and the state.
Supervisor McCowan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we did hear the estimate, which I think is a pretty well-informed estimate, that 70 to 75% of the applications that have not been acted upon are at one state agency or another. I've actually been asking for a quantification of that, specific numbers for some time. That appears to be difficult to pull that up. However, 70 to 75%, that's 600 some applications that appear to be sitting somewhere at the state. So I certainly agree these numbers aren't moving. The problem isn't getting resolved as it relates to the state. I'm completely willing to say at this point there's very limited value to having these regular updates. The Cultivation Ad Hoc will be reporting out with recommendations to the board on May 14th. I think our time and our staff's time is better spent doing the actual work instead of reporting essentially the same things within parameters and noting each time, gee, it's gone up or down 2 or 5. So I would eliminate the monthly report. I would eliminate the quarterly report. I would leave it to staff to get on the agenda if they think they have something they need from us or that they want to report to us. I would dispense with the updates.
Okay, but according to Supervisor Hascheck, we need to wait until the ad hoc report's back next week?
No?
For what?
When I asked about the next update you'd like to have is in August, you said, well, you'd rather the ad hoc come back, or did I hear you wrong with
Well,
that
I was making
recommendation?
reference to what Supervisor McCowan was saying, that we're going to have these recommendations, so I expect that the cannabis staff will be here
Oh,
next
got
week.
you. Okay. See you next week.
I would agree with what's being said. I know that the cannabis staff is working on issues. I mean, I'm only on one of the committees, the Economic Development Committee, and we've met. We have another meeting coming up right away. So I know that they're working on these issues, and I'd rather have them work on the issues outside of these meetings rather than sitting in the back of the room, monitoring the meetings.
Okay, and thank you for the correction. I think I'll eat some more candy. Get my mind working better.
So Chair Brown, was that determined that it would be on an as-needed basis?
Yes,
Thank you.
I think it's consensus for that. Supervisor Williams.
Through the chair, where at the state are these applications held up primarily? Is it on water?
State and water, state and wildlife.
I know, I want to know
Fish
which
and
one.
Wildlife.
Madam Chair, if I could speak, Brent Schultz, it's mainly Fish and Wildlife.
Fish and Wildlife. Through the chair, council, do we have any ability to get Fish and Wildlife into court over this? They're killing our economy, and it's trickling down into all the other business. Can we get their attention? This is unacceptable month after month to have applications essentially blocked by inaction.
Actually, I think that maybe is a letter to the director, California Director of Fish and Wildlife, and
I would 100% support the letter signed by the chair. In addition, I would like to hear if council thinks that we can get Fish and Wildlife into court over putting our local economy under.
Supervisor McCowan, and then we'll go to County Council.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. It's very difficult to sue government for what they do not do. So I don't think that's a viable avenue, but we can hear from County Council. What I would support, because I do believe staff is working diligently or attempting to work diligently with the different state agencies to work through these issues, I would leave it to staff, perhaps in coordination with County Council, to come back to the board at the point where they believe that a letter or other approach to state officials is appropriate. So I would trust their judgment to keep working through these issues and then reach out to us if they think there's a role for us to play.
Okay, that works for me as long as everyone agrees. Supervisor Williams?
I think we're beyond that point. This has gone on too long. The public just has no confidence at this point in our cannabis program. People look at it and think it's not going anywhere. I don't think we can wait anymore for anything. I think we need to take action. We just need to decide what that action is. But, to expect that, let's sit back until August and think we're going to see, these 1,339 applications processed in any meaningful way, I don't see it. I think we'll come back and we'll hear that there's 9 more that have made it through the system and the rest are blocked somewhere at the state. We're not sure where, maybe Fish and Wildlife. And I can't support that. I feel like we have to take some action, even if it means the 5 of us get in a car separately for the Brown Act.
Brown Act line.
And go down to the Capitol and protest. I mean, I'm serious. It's not just about cannabis. These dollars, talk to the local bars. They say people don't have cash anymore. Talk to the car repair shops. People aren't showing up to fix their cars. It's trickling down everywhere. And so it's about much more than just the cannabis people that seem to be the only ones who can come to our meetings. So I'll look to the other supervisors to ideas as to next steps, but I don't think the next step can be waiting.
Council.
So I'm actually would support Supervisor McCowan and his comment. The problem is all throughout this, we've been working with CDFA. We've been looking at this. The CDFW regulations are through the state as well. So this isn't just something we're doing on behalf of our county. And it is a frustration that's being addressed, I think, through RCRC. I think CSAC's been involved. There's a lot of different agencies. I'm certainly willing to work with planning and building on this issue and see if there's anything that we think we could do to move this forward. I certainly would take that direction from this board and come back with some suggestions. I'm just not sure that will move this faster.
Okay, thank you. Public comment, Monique. Restate your name for the record, please.
Monique Ramirez, District 3. Okay, so, gosh, there's a lot I have to say. One, I would love to know about the CEQA update for those of us that have our provisional licenses. From my understanding, we have 1 year to get whatever outstanding documents that put us in provisional corrected. And so the last I've heard is that staff is still working with the state to figure out what's going to happen with Mendocino County CEQA document. And I don't know what's going on with it. But if it turns out that each person is going to have to do an independent CEQA, we need to know about that now so that we can start that process. Number 2, I'd love to know how many staff people there currently are on the cultivation program, because I'm hearing that there's a lot of people that have left. I'd love to know the actual number of employees that are directly connected to doing that. And when does the payment need to be received before it's voided for people that haven't come in to pay for their permits? Like, are you giving them 30 days? It'd be great if you guys could ask the staff about that, so we can let the public know, like, hey, you've been issued your permit, come in, give your money. If you tell people they have 30 days or 2 weeks or whatever, we might get more people to come forward. And I'm just like frustrated in so many ways that I could cry right now, but we have to ask ourselves the question, why did we lose so much staff? Like, what happened? Why did all those people leave this county? There's something internally going on that is causing all these inefficiencies. And as a result, you're gonna raise the fees on the smallest cultivator to cover those costs. Like, I don't know how many more times I can come to the county office and speak for my 3 minutes because the gas prices are rising and I spent $45 in gas just to come here and sit in this audience for hours. And I'm not home with my son because of it. And we're just pleading for some sort of solution. And I feel like there's all these great ideas and they just get overlooked. And we need to get efficient. I know the staff that is here and is dedicated to making this program work is trying their very best, but there's something else internally going on that's causing the rest of the people that were also part of this program to leave. And we need to question what that was so that it doesn't repeat itself again. Thank you so much.
Scott Ward.
Scott Ward, Redwood Valley. I wish I had 10 minutes, but I don't. State requirements holding it up. I know I'm not doing the state or county permit applications anymore because the goalposts keep moving and it gets more and more convoluted. I have 2 applicants that have been in the state since October. They've been in scientific review with CDFA for 2 months. We have no idea Why? They have LSAs issued. I mean, we're just waiting. We have no idea. You email them back, it says, well, just keep checking your email. Phone voicemails are full, hard to get through on the phone. You email, you get some just generic email back, nothing specific to the application number you brought in. 40-day policy to pick up your permit once you've been notified with the county, that's great. County has to notify the applicant that when their permit's ready. I have a client that picked up his. I called up just to check, and they go, oh, we don't know why he hasn't come in. Well, you never called him or emailed him or mailed him. So it's important if you're going to establish a deadline for someone to pick up their county cultivation permit that you have a notification process that they've been duly notified. I suggest that if they don't pick it up in 40 days, that permit gets expired, not null and void, and they're subject to a reinstatement fee, just like a building permit. Redundancies with the renewals. Why are we doing another live scan locally when they're doing it at the state? Right? That makes no sense to have them pay extra money. Just one more piece of paper they have to do. Why are we having applicants when they're ready for the administrative review to go on Sean's desk, having to re-notify Fish and Wildlife to make sure they one more chance to have you comment on a project? If they've already got a self-certification or an LSA issued to them, why are we going back to them and opening up the door? If there's some kind of environmental review for the EIR and our mitigated neg deck, I can understand that. But you give government too many opportunities to comment on something, they're going to find something. I worked for government for 30 years. I know how that operates. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Hannah Nilsson?
Look at how tall he is. Hi, Hannah Nelson. Few things. First off, I do know that the state is issuing provisional licenses even with deficiencies. They have issued hundreds of them in the past week, maybe even thousands. They changed their policy. They weren't issuing provisional licenses if there were any outstanding deficiencies, and now they are. So I believe that things are going to be moving quite a bit further. They still won't issue them if there are LSA, CDFW outstanding problems, but all they require is the CDFW application, a complete application. They do not require the final document. I'm going to say again that we could get things moving if we allow our permits, whether it's conditionally or provisionally or whatever we want to say, to be issued while those things are pending, as long as the full application is there. Some of the other issues with respect to the Water Board, both CDFW and Water Board are charging exorbitant fees, and now people who were doing the right thing all the way along in the regional board program have until July 1st to switch over to the statewide program. So they paid an annual fee for continuing in the regional board program. Now they're having to pay to switch over to new program, plus provide technical reports, which often require a consultant within a certain number of days of having switched over. The fees are killing people at the state level, and that is in part why they're delayed, because they can't afford to keep paying the fees, so then it's taking more time. That's part of the problem. Part of the problem is CDFW is infamously slow and not responsive. They're trying, but they're just not doing a good enough job. The state gives people 90 days to pay. I think that 40 days is not unreasonable, but again, I concur with Scott that the notification really has to be good, that we've had a lot of problems with notification and with sending in documents that then are never filed, never recorded, and are repeatedly asked for again and again at the local level. I do support that idea of a reinstatement fee. I think that's a very good idea. But I think that when we say the state is holding things up, we really have to get more specific, and I'm so glad that you asked which agency, because it is different, and there are two separate issues. One is that state agency actually holding it up? Is the person unable to afford to pay the next thing that will allow them the next process? And then what is the CDFA doing to allow people to continue? And what I've seen is in the past month, they've completely done a 180 and have decided that there's too much of a logjam, and so they're reconsidering what they will allow through now and versus what they won't. I hope that helps. Thank you.
I have a question, if I may. Real brief.
Okay.
For the speaker. At the very beginning of your talk, you described an ability for the county to issue permits while or the applicant's waiting on the state, assuming the application is full. Can you go back to that?
Sure. What I was referring to is that the state now, the state has annual licenses
Yeah.
and they have provisionals. We have different nomenclature. We have our embossed receipts, and then we have the final permit. And so the numbers that you see not moving and the annual fee not being paid are akin to the state's annual permits, and they have very few of those. What they've just opened the floodgates with are their provisional. What I'm suggesting, and I've suggested it multiple times before, is that if in addition to embossed receipts, we have this provisional category, you guys could start receiving some of those annual fees and move the numbers. Yes, we'll still have that final annual permit that needs to be issued when the final LSA or whatever comes in. But if we parallel what the state's doing, it's one way to help the logjam and have people feel like they're progressing and have the county have the income.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Through the chair, can I ask staff if that's possible?
If I may, through the chair. So I think what the speaker is talking about is the provisional and the annual license. Unfortunately, the way 10A17 requires the final document from Fish and Wildlife be in receipt by our department and be checked and verified for validity before we can issue a permit. So we don't have that ability to just take their receipt of application at Fish and Wildlife and issue our permit based on that. But what we do, at the moment that this person walks in and applies at this county, we issue an embossed receipt, which is used as a provisional license that allows that cultivator to begin cultivation practices.
Thank you.
Okay. Report is given. Thank you very much, and we're going to move on in the agenda.
Can I have a question?
Okay.
There are
Yes.
no more slips up here, so if we could line up perhaps?
Okay, we've got a question by a supervisor. I'll get back to you in a moment.
Well, there was that point about voiding the application after 40 days, and what about this idea about the reinstatement fee? Doesn't that seem practical?
Yes, once we void out the permit after, if they don't come in after 40, and by the way, I want to answer their question. We're sending out those letters today. They have 45 days from today to come in and pay for the permit, and then it's active. They don't have to reapply or anything like that. If they don't get it done in 45 days, they have to pay for the reinstatement.
Okay, so that's
Yes.
that's in place. That's the plan.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Susan, the only Susan in the room. Restate your name for the record, please.
Thank you, Susan Tibbin. Thank you very, very much to the new staff members and their obvious willingness to make things work, as well as the board's obvious willingness to make this work. You may not be aware of some of the things that we are dealing with, the 26 plus agencies at the state level. CDFA now shares with callers on their tape that they will no longer be helpful or available to callers. Pretty disappointing. The state has issued hundreds of cease and desist letters right now, 2 or 3 weeks before our little plants go in the ground, to people who are already in the permit process because they're just dragging their feet. Fish and Wildlife is notable for its inflation of Fish and Wildlife in the Surias took their information from Surias that were based on law enforcement statistics. In the Suria, it's noted that the smaller entities, the small farmers, were not included, and they were lumped together with illegality. And that touches on the point that one of the speakers mentioned initially, and that is that there's a sense that things are very punitive, that we're all criminals. And I would respectfully suggest that here at the county seat, we start with taking 1-800-WEED off of that. It could be 1-800-CANNABIS. When I apply, if I apply for a liquor license, I don't dial 1-800-BOOZE. And it just sends the wrong message. We want to work with you too, and we're out of money, and we're very, very frustrated, but we appreciate the opportunity to continue to work with you. Thank you.
Petra?
Hi, I'm Petra Buchanan. I just wanted to speak to the CDFW situation. I work with an environmental consultant, and he just hired me. We've been working together for quite a while, though. But yesterday, or in the last couple of weeks, we thought things were rolling along, and suddenly it just seems they want way more information, right away. And it's the same thing where in the beginning when we would apply here, you kind of would let us submit some information. If we were missing it, it was okay, we could proceed. And now they're like, nope, we need every single thing right now. And it's creating this thing where it's going to lengthen the process by about 6 months. So I'm just putting that out there, that kind of things are even becoming more arduous, not less. So.
Corinne?
Corinne Powell from Ukiah. I agree with Supervisor Williams' suggestion that we take action as a county to query these various state agencies and to do our best to explain the impact here, because it is severe. But the state is not the only jurisdiction. We too, in our own county, have some barriers to entry into the system. Tomorrow is the anniversary of the proposed presentation on ownership transfers, transferability. We hear that there's going to be some ad hoc presentation in a week or so, but it's been a whole year since we have not moved with transferability, which allows our cultivators to potentially secure some investor help or to sell with value in their property as it pertains to cannabis production. That's a huge issue that this county has not addressed. So I'm standing here again offering for community people to help our staff and our county redirect our energies in ways that correct some of our own problems. So please call on us. We have things to do here that will also move our process along in the industry. Thank you.
Paul? And Paul will be followed by Ron.
Hi, Paul Hansberry, Laytonville. Hannah was saying that the logjam has been removed from CDFA within the past few weeks. Here's a letter dated May 1st, cease and desist, all commercial cannabis operations, because my temporary expired. Our Senator McGuire and Assemblymember Wood put together a bill, SB 67, which has been watered down considerably because the CDFA didn't want to do the reporting. It was supposed to be until the 31st. It's watered down to September, and that's because of CDFA. And the BCC. With regards to Fish and Wildlife and the Water Board, Prop 64 directed them to establish principles and guidelines, basically best practices. In the very first paragraph of their 145-page report is that stated that that's what they were tasked with doing, henceforth known as requirements. So they're in the very first paragraph is their overreach. They have no oversight except for the administration, the governor, the administration itself, not the legislature, not the Department of Consumer Affairs, it's the governor. You might want to get a hold of Nicole Elliott at the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. She was formerly the cannabis czar in San Francisco and has been appointed as the primary policy advisor to the governor through the governor, GoBiz they call it, Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. On another subject, taxes. The state, I did no commercial activity last year, although I had a corporation and I filed and I got my EIN and all the things. 0 taxes were due. Here's my file. Here's a notice in red paper saying that I owe by the end of the month, I owe $1,250 that I didn't cultivate because I got my permit in November, the middle of November. But still, I understand that staff and is going to be presenting to you next week, and I hope something good comes of that. But that's just wrong. I didn't cultivate for this permit. I had to meet deadlines, which I did, and now I'm being charged for something I didn't do. Thank you.
Ron Edwards Willits. Fish and Wildlife is basically gutting people out. I have almost at the end of my rope in dealing with the situation. In regards to building and planning, saying you're not hearing anybody come in, well, if you've been following this, you go, okay, I go to the ag department. Oh, nope, now I go to the executive office. Nope, now I go back to ag. Nope, now I go to building and planning. I am hearing all the time about problems that people are having. I have not seen an outreach email of, hey, if you are having a problem and you're going through our system, what are some suggestions? What are some things we could do? Fortunately, I was able to stay because I had my brother make some arrangements because this is rather important last ditch for me. But a simple thing, I watched the meeting last time about how everybody makes changes on their application and a simple checkbox of have you made changes, yes or no. Workshops for people to come in as a group, which you were doing instead of having everybody individually. There are just so many suggestions from the community, and I'm not sure why we are not taking advantage of a working group on that. I mean, we can sit here and say, I'm not hearing, but there are people saying, hey, let's put together a working group. I mean, everybody here who's a cultivator knows a lot more cultivators that come to them because they say, well, you're going to the meeting so you know what's going on. But those people don't really know how to get information in. You can make a comment, but what are we really doing to facilitate that information coming in? I had a little meeting last night from a group from Sacramento. And one of the things people were saying was, you know, when I have a delivery, I go down and I meet the delivery driver to show them where to go. So why not have cultivators can meet the inspectors at a main road? And Supervisor Williams' suggestion of photos. Well, Google Earth does a really good job, and I'm sure government has access to much better data than that, I mean, to verify it. So, I mean, there are a number of things that could be done. I don't think we are timed this correctly. I think we're going to see a lot more people drop out. We're going to be hiring staff to take care of a dying group of people that just cannot do it. And as I said, the amount of money that this keeps costing, I mean, every time you pay something, you get another invoice. And in any other business, you could probably figure out what your costs are ahead of time. But this situation is that every time you think you've got it figured out, there's a new fee, particularly fish and wildlife. Thank you.
Okay. We are on with the agenda. Thank you, everyone, for your public comment. Thank you, staff. So we are to 5D.